Okay, hi everyone. So, hello everyone from the Klima series. And I hope you guys are ready to listen to our speakers' presentations and ready to engage with the breakout room session as well. So, how many people are there in the room actually? We have already 50 people in the room. So, we will start in a minute. Hello everyone, are you guys doing well? So can you hear my voice loud and clear? If you hear my voice loud and clear, can you raise thumbs up? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So today we will be celebrating our first Klima series session. So this learning series is mainly aimed for the youth and young adults who are really enthusiastic about climate change and its issues on biodiversity and other area of nature and natural disaster. So yeah, I would like to turn on your video, but you can stay muted. But if you have a questions, you can write in the chat box, or after the session, you will have a chance to ask in audio session as well. So yeah, so we will be. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, so the first climate series session is understanding climate change and pursuing climate actions. I will be moderating the whole session, and our speaker, Lucy Wong, yeah, so Lucy wants from our, can you show me the previous slide, please? Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, so yeah, previous slides. Yeah, so our speaker, Lucy Wong, so she is also a science and solution advisor at ATO Climate Educates, and I will be moderating this session. So please, next slide. Yeah. So we have a chat rule. So you will be turning off your microphone when you are listening. If you are not speaking, you can turn off your microphone as well. And also you can send questions. And also if you have something unclear about the session, you can also write in the chat and Zoom chat. And we also request you to set a background. Set a background like the green one, right? So participant must have set their background that we have sent it to you, and also be engaged, be proactive in the breakout room session as well. So we will have breakout rooms. We have 3 breakout room sessions. So yeah, please stay tuned for that. So next slide, please. So yeah, this is Asmita Reward. So she is the director of education and advocacy center. She will be give a talk in open message as well. So Asmita, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Shar. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm Asmita Raut. I'm from Nepal, and I'm committee director for education and advocacy at ATO Climate Educate project. So first of all, I'd like to give you a warm welcome and thank you so much for joining our session today. And I hope this session will be a great learning experience for you all. And first of all, I'd like to start by thanking Lucy Wong, our main speaker for today, and also to the team for putting on so much of time and effort. And this would not have been possible without such a wonderful team that I have. And so let me tell you a little bit about the Klima learning series. So we aimed it particularly for students to teach them about the general basic science of climate educate, the climate change and global warming, how it affects us and what we can do to mitigate it. So this will give you a very general understanding of climate change science. So we hope you will be learning a lot about it. And we also plan on having the continuation of the Klima learning series because this is the Klima learning series 1. So hopefully you will be having continuation. So tune in with our Facebook pages to see when we'll be having it. So, and we'll hope to see you there too. And I hope that this session will be informative as well as interactive, because we hope to make it fun for you to learn this. Yeah, that will be all. And thank you, Shar. I'll let you get back to it.
Thank you so much, Asmita, for giving an opening message to our participants and to this Klima series learning series session. So next, for the next, we will be so for our speaker sections. So Lucy Wong, I will give a short bio note about Lucy Wong. So she is currently attending a full-time master degree in ASEAN's with a major in ASEAN MBA programs in sustainability management. She is also a part-time program and nursery assistant at Tropical Rainforest Conservation and Research Centers as well. So working aside from that, she is also a committee member of Climate Educate ATO for organization team and Malaysia youth delegations as well, with a passion for marine conservation, and she's also a PADI certified rescue diver and SSI certified free diver. So this is our brief speaker notes. And Lucy Wong, the floor is yours.
Hi, Isha. Hi, everyone on the lines. Thanks for the very kind introductions, and I would like to take the floor from here. First of all, before I start, I would like to share my screen. Yeah. So I hope everyone is seeing my screen well. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. And from the registrations demographic, I saw most of you are from Philippines and from every part of the world. Good evening from Malaysia. So I'm currently, as Shah mentioned earlier, I'm currently an ASEAN Master in Sustainability Management. And before this, I got a background in environmental science. So I began the journey with my love towards the environment, obviously. And then, and Shah also mentions about Malaysian Youth Delegation. So I joined the Malaysian Youth Delegation since like 2019. So it's an organization where we train youth to represent Malaysia in the COP meetings every year. So for now, I'm the senior member and still running the organization. Yeah, so without further ado, I will, I'm sorry, I'm sharing the question first, right? The moderator. So maybe I should stop sharing and let the admin to take over and share the question. I'm sorry if I'm sharing my screen too early.
So Carl can share the screen.
Yeah.
For the question section.
Yeah. So before we begin, maybe we can have a short quiz. So maybe you guys can let us know the answer in the chat box. So climate change is the overall increase of global temperature, while global warming is referred to as the long-term effects on our planet's climate system. Yeah, maybe any one of you who might aware of the answers, you can like drop your answers in the chat box, true or false, and then we can move on to the next question. So basically, climate change and global warming are like the two terms that we always interuse when we are talking about this warming trend of our planet temperature. So there might be some like misunderstanding in between these two terms, like what is global warming, is the same with climate change. So in my sessions, I will share with you guys the simple and the basics climate science, which yeah. So the next question. Yeah, so it's false. So because climate change is referred to like the long-term effects of our planet's climate system, while global warming is the overall increase in the Earth global temperature. So it's like so global warming is one of the factors that cause climate change. Yeah. So it's a two different term with two different understanding. Yeah. So the next quiz, yes. So which of the following is the best example describing what a climate is? Yeah. So we have four options here: an intense thunderstorm, the average temperature, or like maybe you are experiencing a hot day and in a certain year of the month, and then or like experiencing a foggy day, even like in the morning. Yeah. So to your understanding, which one is the best example to describe what is a climate? Yep. I'm seeing answer coming in. Yeah. Most of the participants got it correct. So it's like the average temperature. So why is it so, and why are the others not? Maybe we can like discuss later in my session later. So yeah. So choice B, like the average temperature, refers to the average temperature of a specific location in a specific periods of time, which means like it's a phenomenon that like take over a long it's a constant constant or average phenomenon that like take place in a specific period of time. So it's not just like today you wake up and it's hot and it's climate change, and tomorrow you wake up suddenly it's not hot anymore. Maybe you think climate change is not here anymore, but so these are not the situation that we are looking at. So the others are like what I mentioned: today hot, today not. Then this day you're experiencing foggy or raining. So that is what a daily weather patterns, which we usually have to check on the weather forecast to look at. So that one is weather, which different with the climate change that we are going to talk about. Yeah. Next slide. Please, do you still have more slides to share? If not, yeah. Thanks, Carl. So without further ado, I'll go into what is climate change? So as the building up question earlier, so we know that there's two terms talking about like the change of temperature in the Earth system, right? So there is climate and there's weather. So what is the difference between these two before we go into climate change? So why are we not talking about weather change, but we are talking about climate change, and how is that affects the humans' activities and our future? So yeah. So a weather is like like I briefly mentioned earlier, weather is like a prevailing like conditions of the atmosphere of a particular place. For example, like in Malaysia today, I'm experiencing a sunny evening, but like the other part of the world, it might be like a raining day or like a foggy evening or even like a thunderstorm. So at a specific areas, something is happening in the atmosphere, the weather conditions, we call it as weather. But if we are talking, so that this weather is like a temporarily a short-term change of weather. But if we are talking at climate, which yes, we are looking at climate, it's like a long-term aggregate of like weather condition, which the scientists or like even like citizen scientists, like citizen climatologists, as you call, if you learn about climate. So it's like a long-term aggregate of weather conditions of a particular place. For example, today I'm sitting in this room at this particular place. I have been sitting here for like, I have been in this place for like 10 years maybe. So I have the records of the experience of the change of the weathers. So I kind of like know like, oh, this time of the year is this average temperature, for example, like 36 degrees Celsius this time of the year. So after 5 years, I observed that during this time of the period, the temperature is increasing over the years. So like maybe this year is like increased to like the average temperature is increased to like 38 degrees Celsius. So like maybe 5 years later, which is like 10 years from which I start observing the weather, and then it will be like maybe like 38.5, 39 something. So where the temperature is gradually increasing, and I have the aggregation of this data for like 10 years, even 5 years. So this kind of data can support the hypothesis of climate change because you can observe the gradual increase. It's a constant increase in temperature. So like in the slide mentions, it's like a long-term aggregate of weather, and most of the time it happens, it's spread like evenly throughout the continents. Like it's not like very particular, it's not very location specific, but it's like a climate. Climate is like a phenomenon that's spread through the continent. So you'll be observing, like for example, the city of Manila is increasing like no matter which township you are in, so the city temperature is increasing, something like that. Yeah. So next slide. So the climate we can look at like, so climate, there is like microclimate, macroclimate. So microclimate is something that, like for example, in a forest environment and in a city environment is a different thing, but they have a constant like these climate conditions where, for example, in the forest, it's always cold in the morning, and when the sun rises up, obviously in the afternoon, it will like increase to a certain temperature, and then at night, there is a very like steep drop of temperature compared to the noon. But if in a city, you wouldn't experience such like such like big difference of temperature, that you would always in between like 2 to 3 degrees Celsius from the morning and night. So when we are looking at this climate, there are these microclimate conditions that we need to take account for when we are talking about climate change. Yeah. So I mentioned earlier is a long-term change in average weather patterns that have come to define the Earth's local, regional, and also the global climates. So what is causing climate change? So actually, so there is like 3 causes. So because the understanding, the most general understanding we have on climate change is that human activities cause climate change, but we cannot neglect that there is also natural causes. There's actually started with natural causes of climate change. So for example, like solar activities, volcanic activities, tectonic plate movement, these big environmental events often cause like climate change, like for example, the ice age and like the sudden drop of temperature in certain places, which is like a norm, like for example, some part in the north there is like no daylight, something like that. So these are the big environmental events will cause like the climate change. But we are not, why we are not studying this and why we are not taking account into this, because it's not like frequent, and it's not like it's not like a frequent and a constant events that will cause like a one-time climate change, but we are talking about human. So now we are looking at like the human anthropogenic cause, which is the human cause. So we are looking at the human cause because because like, for example, industrializations, agriculture, mining, oil exploration, transportation. So human civilization begins basically around like 1950s when there is a transition of like agriculture to like industrialization. So there's a lot of this fossil fuel burning and things like that. So from there, the historical data shows that there is a constant like there's a correlations between like the transitions phase of human civilizations to industrializations, which is with the rise of temperature since the 1950s until today. So the amount of the carbon dioxide in the air. So I will talk about this climate change science after this, which involve the gas in the atmosphere. But we are looking at the anthropogenic cause because there is a record of science that shows a positive correlation between these human activities and the rise of temperature. So how do we understand climate change, and what is it happening in the atmosphere that cause the heat to like the increase of temperature? So imagine we are looking at a greenhouse. So there is this term called greenhouse effect. So greenhouse effect is basically the reasons and the factor of climate which contributes to climate change. So imagine like the earth is like a greenhouse. So the atmosphere is basically like the glass wall. So we know that solar activity, like I mentioned earlier, natural causes solar activities. So solar actually like came into like the earth. So when they came in, there is always, so when it's reflected back to the outer space, there is always a certain amount of gases being trapped in the atmosphere. So like carbon dioxide, methane, some of the oxygen even, and some of the like water vapors. So these like vapors, methane, and carbon dioxide is actually the three main greenhouse gases, we call it, of climate of the greenhouse effect. So how it caused the world to heat up. So actually these three gases they trap heats, like carbon dioxide trap heats, methane trap heat, vapor obviously traps heat. So vapor is a form of water which in a gas state, but is trap heat is a very high the latent heat of energy is very high, so it traps heat. So in the so methane has like, if I'm not mistaken, like 28 times more potent than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gases. So what does that mean? Which means like to a small amount of methane, it can trap more heat than the same 28 times more heat than the same amount of carbon dioxide. So we might not find a lot of methane in the atmosphere, but a small amount of methane can trap a lot of heat compared to carbon dioxide, which we find a lot in the atmosphere. So it's also contributing to the climate change. So when the solar activity came in and there is a certain amount of heat that trapped in the atmosphere, so it's fine because it's a natural, like I mentioned earlier, solar activity is a natural climate change events where is a natural like global warming effects, which it can be regulated by the environments, the biomes, which is like the environment, the green lungs of the earth, like the forest, because they're attracting carbon from the atmosphere. So, and also the ocean, obviously, which the participants will go into the breakout rooms about all these environments, how are they helping and also contributing, like not like contributing, but helping and also negatively impacted by climate change. So these are the lungs that actually absorb carbon from the atmosphere. So when these ecosystems are healthily providing eco-services, they are able to capture this heat. But the human activities, why we are looking at human activities and main source, because human activity is causing more carbon dioxide to be released into the atmosphere, more than what the natural system can regulate. So more and more carbon dioxide is being trapped in the atmosphere, and obviously it's caused global warming, and it's caused like climate change. So all these events that I'm talking about is not like building up in like 1 or 2 years or even like 10 years. It's taking across decades. Like I mentioned earlier, there is a constant record of increasing temperature since the 1950s. So we are looking at like a century of observations data from the weather. So these are what I mentioned earlier, accumulations of weather data which contributes to, which prove the events of climate change. So I also mentioned in the previous slide, greenhouse gases, water vapor, obviously, nitrogen oxide, carbon dioxide, methane, and also And also greenhouse effects is the source of climate change, the source of global warming. So like I mentioned earlier, the solar came in as maybe you can get a better better imaginations from this graphic. So the solar activity came in and you get traps, and then the red arrows is basically the human activity, which is causing more and more like carbon dioxide into the air, where the natural ecosystem are not able to absorb and regulate the climates anymore. So it's causing more and more carbon dioxide trapped in the atmosphere. Yeah. So how does this like global warming actually affects us? Like we know the very like quite famous like ozone layer, like the hole in ozone layer, how it affects us, and it is like much more effectively being resolved like by the global treaty. So why are we taking why we are not taking climate change serious enough, like the ozone layer issues, and how does it actually impact us that we need to actually pay more attention to climate change as the other crisis that's happening in the world right now. So water quality and water quantity. So obviously, if you have global warming, have climate change, it causes like more droughts around the world, and then it will impact the already like marginalized community where there is an unequal access to water quality and like clean water and also quantity. So this like global warming is like climate change is like anticipated to like cause worse events, because you are causing the hotter part of the world hotter, and then also the Mediterranean regions is like getting hotter and hotter as well. So there's a impact in the water quality and the water quantity. So food security is another major concerns from climate change, because when we don't have water, we don't have the resources to grow our food. So there is a debate and a conversation going around very aggressively into the next decades about the world of water. So water is like right now the most important assets and resources that we have to like preserve, and also looking at if we have to keep the earth system operating, because it directly impacts the food security like in different parts of the world. So if we cannot grow our staple food, obviously it impacts the stomach of many people, the old, the rich, and everyone. And then again, like when there is a nutrition side, a food access side about food security, there is also economic concerns of food security. So when you are looking at like some of the agriculture countries are some of the like developing countries. So when we don't have the like lack of this access, and we are like even facing like food security, so it reduces the productions of the country and the exports and things like that, and even the self-sufficiency level. So it impacts like up to economics level, like, and from societal, from environmental factors. So food security is another major concern that we need to look at. Floods and droughts, obviously floods displace a lot of victims. We call climate victims in Malaysia this year itself. So floods, a lot of flash floods, because again, we know that some of the impact of climate change. One, how does it impact the community? One is like a more severe weather, more severe weather patterns, which means like more rains, longer rains. So when all this happen, when the city are not prepared, are not designed for like flood prone conditions, so flood happens very quickly, flash flood, it traps people in the floods and cause a lot more losses than anyone can anticipate if we are not prepared, and droughts and everything. So these are some of the, so speaking as from a Malaysians, these are some of the impacts, some of the natural resources that we didn't take into account like 40 years before, we didn't plan for when we built this, when the government built the city and things like that. So after a few decades, we are actually observing all these trends. So it's like something that I mentioned earlier, when you're staying in a city for like, you're staying in the same place for like 5 years, 10 years, you're actually seeing the impact of climate change right now. So next one, conflict, disaster. Conflict come from, more and more conflicts come from like the management of natural resources, access to natural resources. So natural resources has always been like the fights, not like the fights, like the rich and the wealth of a country. But like after the colonizations, when the countries take back their own management towards the natural resources. Again, it became a global issue because of the globalizations, and again, a lot of conflicts arises again on natural resources, but on different approaches. And also natural disasters I mentioned earlier, more and more floods, and yeah, from more severe weather patterns. And infection disease, obviously we are all experiencing from 2020. So how COVID-19 came into the community, came into the society, like the heat up of if we know virology, so the heat up of the environment obviously speed up the spread of the virus. If we are not just talking about COVID-19, there is more, and also WHO even warned there's more and more like disease coming around, pandemics and endemics and everything. So when the global warming heats up, so it's actually so when we're looking at climate change, we cannot just look at one side, like for example, environments, or we just look at the community or stuff like that. We need to look at interdisciplinary sections. So for example, so how this infection disease come in, like we look at deforestation. So so when more trees are being cut down, and then there is less trees to capture the carbons, and then cause more climate change. Again, when more trees being cut down, these diseases are being more accessible, like transmittable to human society, things like that. So actually cause climate change. So it's one of the impact from climate change. So what we can do to stop it? So from the UNFCCC, there is 3 pillars that people are looking at to develop plans to. We are not talking about solving climate change. We are not talking about stopping it at all, because we are anticipated to experience the impact of climate change into the next 50 years, even into the next 10 years, even we stop our carbon emissions right now, like this year, but and what more is not possible. So we are looking at mitigations and adaptation plans. So what are these two? So mitigation is basically to reduce the impact of climate change, and adaptation is what are some of the plans and also city plannings that we can plan to adapt to the next 10 years to the impact of climate change. Yeah. So these are the end of my presentations. I appreciate everyone who stay on this long with me. Yeah, let me look at the time. I guess it's on time, and I shall take any question if there's any, and I will pass the floor back to the moderator. Thank you.
So I saw a lot of comments in the Zoom chat box sessions. So you can also unmute yourself and ask directly to the speaker as well. But right now I am just reading some of the questions sent in the Zoom chat box as well. So yeah, the first question is very general. Like it is like climate change and environment are related. So the question is from I think we also have a lot of would you please open your mic, and would you like to ask more specifically to the speaker, because you you added so much questions in the Zoom chat as well. I think that you will have a lot of questions to ask our speaker. Yes. So you am I correct? Am I correctly pronouncing your name? I think yeah. So Lucy, would you like to answer his question? If
yeah, sure. Is it the question about is climate change and environmental and environment related?
Environments are related. Yes. Sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can answer that. So when we are looking at climate change, because obviously the atmosphere is also part of the environment. So if we are looking at the land environment, for example, the forest and the marine ecosystem, so how does all this interrelated to each other? It's definitely related. This is a short answer. So how does it related to each other? So again, I mentioned earlier. So the forest. So what are the main the relation? I would say the main fact. The main relationship between like environments and the climate change is like the forest and the marine ecosystem is actually play a very big role in like absorbing the carbon from the atmosphere. So when this environment is losing their ecosystem services, which is carbon capturing, so it will worsen the climate change and also like and obviously accelerating the phenomenon. And again, climate change impacted back to the environment in many different ways. For example, forest fire that we are observing, and also because it's getting hotter and hotter, and when it burns down the forest, again, it's destroying the very basics carbon capturing ecosystem itself. So these are how the climate change and environment related. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. I also got a lot of questions from the same person as well. He also want to study more about climate change impact on women and girls. So I think it is more into like gender equality thing, because how can the climate change affect a majority of women and girls living in the Cameroon area? Yeah, I think Cameroon.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I can take up this question. So when we are looking at this issue, we actually have to look back into the cultural side of like the role of women and girls in a society context. So if I imagine like from Cameroon's area, like even in any part of the world, even in ASEAN context, so in like historically, like women and girls is always like how like a supporting roles to the males back in the days, in the world days, in the historical context when we look at it. So from there, so it always been normalized that human and girls have less access to like education first, second to the social status. So when this historical role is being carried forward to the society today, which I believe is still carry on in some of the society, most of the society in the world. So when they are still like lacking some of the equal access to like clean water, for example, education, so they didn't get to learn about climate change and stuff like that, and then lack of access to like even like fleeing routes for like climate victims, and even like income sources. So all these factors that contribute to the inequality in the society is applicable to like the climate change context, because when climate change happens, you have to displace the community to somewhere, or even like floods happen, you are providing aids to some of the community, like women, and so it is related to the role and the context, to the role, basically the role of women and girls in the society. So when it's already less like the marginalized community, less accessible to all these resources, climate change kind of like deepen the inequality to like these are some of the aids and also adaptation plans. Women are less accounted into the plans and things like that. So these are how climate change are actually, I would say, like the rise of another crisis that deepens the inequality in the society. So this is how I mentioned earlier, when we look at climate change, we cannot just look at environment, because it involves the interdisciplinarity of different like economics, even society. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, you can unmute yourself. Yeah. We will
Okay. Okay, I want to say hello to each and everyone, and I want to say a big thank you to Lucy Wong. I really don't know if that's how her name is being pronounced, and I want to say that I've been shying away from climate change topics, but bit by bit, I think I'm beginning to understand the basics of climate change. Thank you so much for the speaker, because she said so many things and I'm beginning to understand. And I'm from Cameroon. I'm a female freelance journalist. So I think I put up another question in the chat, asking if you live in an environment where we have seas and lakes and rivers, what's the connection between that and climate change? Does it affect us positively or negatively? Thank you so much.
Maybe I can quickly answer the question. Yeah, so actually lakes and sea, obviously, they help to mitigates, I can say, like I mentioned at the last slide, there is a mitigation plan, adaptation plan. So it helps to mitigate climate change because it regulates the regional weather events. Like, so when there's weather, there's climate. So when the seas are starting to regulate the water, because they are absorbing heat, they are trapping heat. So the ocean, actually, the water molecule, like I mentioned, because the chemical of the water molecule itself, it can trap more heat than the soil, obviously, the soil in the forest. So when it traps more heat and then it regulates the regional climates, regional weather in that area, in that specific area, and it contributes to the long-term climates in that area. So it positively affects the climate change. Yeah. So we need to conserve a lot of like these protected areas. So UN has put up the 30 times 30 protected areas agenda, where we need to conserve 30% of the natural environment in the world to kind of like help to positively help and to regulate the impact of climate change.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Yes, so we will also take one questions from Ran from Philippines. His question is climate change preventable, or if it is preventable, like how can we prevent or mitigate and adapt the climate change? But also, is climate change related to the carbon footprint that we use every day?
Yep. I would say, personally, I would say like climate change is not preventable, because I also briefly mentioned in the presentation just now, even when we stop like our carbon emissions, which is quite similar to the carbon footprints, which she asked earlier. So I'm not sure it's a she or he, but yeah, the participant asked earlier about the carbon footprint. So even when we stop our carbon emission as a country or even as a society as a whole, is not preventable, because what we are observing right now is actually the impact of climate change from like 20 years or 30 years ago. So the impact is like going to carry on to like the next 10 years. So yeah, I mean, we are probably like people like scientists, government around the world are looking at slowing it down, resolving it. So like more like adapting to it. And even if we're talking about mitigation, it's like a 50 years plan, 20 years plan. So yeah, I mean, it's not really preventable because we are already experiencing it right now. So it's more like resolving and like diluting the effects of climate change. That is related to carbon footprint, yes, because when we're talking about carbon, so because carbon dioxide is the main gas in the world. So when we are monitoring our carbon footprints, it's definitely related to the climate change. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much for your insightful questions and very attention to details to all the question as well. So we will be moving on to the So Catherine, okay. So I think you raised up. Okay, so we will be moving into the breakout section. So breakout section, we will have 3 sections: the forest, and the oceans, and the climate change and health sector as well. So I think that our technical support team already sent it to the Zoom chat about your room. So you will have to join specific room to be able to discuss with the follow participant and for the moderator. So I will be moderating for the breakout room session 1, and the rest of the other. Diosa will be moderating for the oceans, and Risha will be moderating for the climate change and health sector. So we will be seeing you on the breakout room sessions.